drove you towards wanting to do self-publishing as opposed to trying to query or go the traditional route? And then, so you published the first one. So are books 2 and 3, where are they in that process?
So I chose to self-publish because my editor pushed me to do it, honestly. I was in the trenches, sending all my letters, which I'm really not very good at. If it was old school, and I could go to their office and be like, here's my manuscript, let's talk about it, I know I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm pretty charismatic, and I think I could get them to sell me. But when you just are one email in 1,000, it gets pretty frustrating. Mm-hmm. The last query I sent was, gosh, it was this lady, and everything that my novel is, she had as a one, like every single thing. And I messaged my editor, Laura, and I was like, hey, this lady's perfect. I think it's set. And she got back to me pretty quick, and she was like, I love your novel. I think it's good, but I can't represent it right now. And I was like, mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, went into my pit of despair. And Laura was like, look, you've been doing this novel forever. You've edited it, and we've edited it like 30 times. She's like, just publish it and get it out there. She's like, because if you never do, nobody's ever going to know. And I was like, you know what? I will just do it. I'll just put it out there. And I had already self-published a couple poetry books and a non-fiction-y fiction book. So I kind of had an idea what I was doing. And then I was like, okay, I'll just do it and go for the best. And then as far as book 2 goes, it's in editing at Writer Journey Services right now, or about to be. Book 3, I need to self-edit first and get ready to kind of get edited and then get a cover for that one. But book 3, 4, 5 are done. They just are in their rough stages, so I need to get through them while I'm simultaneously working on book 6 and finishing another poetry book.
Yeah, cool. What's your favorite part of the writing process? Do you like the drafting, editing, world building? Like, what's your favorite part of the whole process?
I hate editing with passion. Hated it in university. Hate it now, especially as an English major, because you learn everything you don't know. There's always rules that you're like, oh my gosh, it's so stupid. Especially in English, because some rules just don't make sense.
Yeah.
And then I love just writing. I love the characters. But I also do love world building. I think world building is very much, it's like give and take, because you're always learning what you're world building. I don't think, unless you're George R. R. Martin, I don't think anybody's really an expert world builder. I think we're all kind of learning as we go. Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of the fun part, is it's never the same and you're always learning and experimenting. And I think that's pretty cool as long as it translates well on the page. But reading, A Song of Ice and Fire and seeing his world building almost made me not want to do it, because I was like, his world is so insanely big and complex.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously that's part of the fun of world building, is we all build differently. And I do think that's probably the most fun once you get over some of the hiccups, because I'm sure we all question ourselves and are like, well, that's stupid. Is that too big? How do you... Distance is like the worst part of world building. So I will say that. Trying to figure out what distance makes sense for everything, especially when you put a map into it. So I will say rough world building is fun, but then when you get into the fine tuning of world building, it's a giant pain, just like editing.
Yeah.
So I think probably just drafting and getting the book together in general is probably the most fun, especially because I'm pretty in tune and love my characters. And I like to take the journey with them. So I think that's probably my most enjoyable part.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole world building thing is great, because the other thing too that this happens to me is, you do end up a little bit in the comparison game, because it's hard to. There's nothing truly original anymore. We're just creating things that are kind of similar, and you're taking some ideas from some stuff, and then you're redoing some things for yourself. And so I would find myself a lot of times like, that's too similar to this, or that's too similar to that, and then I finally had to just be kind of like, just got to create the world that matches the story that I'm trying to tell.
Yeah, I had that problem, because some people were like, oh, your novel's kind of Game of Thrones-ish. And I was like, man, as much as because I'm a super Game of Thrones nerd, I'll admit, but I've really done my best to try to make it not Game of Thrones as possible, especially just world-wise. But of course, there are similarities, because when you have novels that are in the same realm of existence, you're going to have similarities. Like you said, there's nothing that's going to be totally original. So everything's going to have something in common with something, right? I mean, it's pretty much unavoidable. And you know that as everybody as an English major or a writer or any kind of literature person knows that nothing's fully original.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a pain in trying to make it stand out to be as original as possible. I think is hard as far as world building goes, but I really get caught up on the distance. The distance really kills me a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I've struggled with some of that too, where it's like if you have a travelogue moment in your story of like how long is it going to take them to get where I need them to go, and then
Mm-hmm.
matching the timeline of that to yeah, I totally understand that. I get it.
Yeah, I'm not a sailor, so I just guesstimate on the ocean. I'm like, I could take 400 weeks to get there. I have no idea how long it's going to take to get across this ocean. So I couldn't even tell you how
Yeah.
long it takes to get across the Atlantic.